clock is already ticking, yes. I will say Afa Dworkin is in the front row, and she should have a clear, transparent back to her seat so that everybody can see that she's chief troublemaker. It's so great. Folks, thank you so much for being here for Ready, Set, what? All about partnerships. I am particularly thrilled to be here with such fantastic colleagues in the field, and also with all of you and with the community of Sphinx admirers, folks that are learning from Sphinx and really benefiting from its programs. It feels really great to be amongst so many good friends and to have the opportunity to have this space, to have dialogues like this. I would like to absolutely call out one of our panelists immediately. That is Helen Eaton in the middle with the Philadelphia Music Alliance for Youth, PMA, more commonly known as, who is subbing in for Sarah Johnson. So Helen, thanks so much for being so flexible. And as we get started, I would just encourage you all to, totally engage Slido in submitting questions that you might have, engage these microphones throughout in just getting up and asking questions, and then certainly think about social media and using the hashtag SphinxConnect to share your ideas there as well. We will get going with some introductions just to make sure we're all clear on who's in the room and who we are. So I'll ask Ahmad to start by introducing yourself and your organization. In particular, introducing yourself in a way that you might when you're meeting a new partner. You have 90 seconds or 60 seconds in an elevator, in a hallway. How do you talk about who you are and what you do?
Sure. Well, like Omari said, I'm Ahmad Mays. I'm the Director of Education and Community Engagement with the Cincinnati Symphony Orchestra in Ohio. And we are, Cincinnati Symphony Orchestra doubles as the Cincinnati Pops. We're the pit orchestra for the Cincinnati Ballet, the Cincinnati Opera, celebrating our 125th season next season. And in my role there, I'm responsible for helping the orchestra build deeper relevance, deeper value in our community through education and community engagement programming outside of the concert hall primarily. And we do that through young people's concerts, school partnerships. We have a robust school residency program. We do professional learning for educators. We have community engagement programs that focus on highlighting the arts resources in our community and matching our musicians with the great work that's already happening in Cincinnati. And we do instructional programs. We have 2 youth orchestras that we run and a relatively new pre-conservatory program for musicians from underrepresented backgrounds that is in its 2nd year. Some of the students, I believe, are here. And we're also, my department is also the one that runs our diversity fellowship program that we have in partnership with CCM.
Great. Thanks so much, Ahmad. Helen.
Great.
Go for it.
In addition to doing lots of wonderful work with the Philadelphia Music Alliance for Youth, or what we refer to as PMA, I'm the CEO of Settlement Music School. So I'll explain a little bit about Settlement. Settlement is one of the largest community schools of the arts in the country. We were founded in 1908 out of the Settlement House movement, welcoming immigrants and creating a home away from home, and nothing has changed in over 100 years. We have 6 branches throughout the Philadelphia area, 4 in the city. We have 1 in the suburbs of Philadelphia and 1 in Camden, New Jersey. We have 200 amazing teaching artists and arts therapists. And what we're most proud of is that we provide $2.6 million every year in financial aid, which is to about 60% of our student population. It's an enormous privilege to serve as the CEO of Settlement, and one of my initiatives over the past 9 years as their CEO has been to grow community partnerships. And currently we have between about 40 and 50 community partnerships every year.
Great. Thanks, Helen. Susan.
I'm Susan Fader. I'm Program Officer in the Arts and Cultural Heritage Program area at the Andrew W. Mellon Foundation. Mellon is based in New York City and is the largest funder devoted to the arts and humanities. Omari asked me to talk about what a program officer is, which is a strange beast, I would say. We have 5 program areas at Mellon, and as a program officer in Arts and Cultural Heritage, I am responsible for conveying our grants to the board. So we set budgets every year. We conduct site visits with current and potential grantees. We are locked into a quarterly cycle of preparation for our trustees. So I invite and review proposals, write those recommendations to the trustees, and spend a lot of time on the road meeting with our grantees and being at places like this so that we can live and learn. It is a place of possible isolation to be in a philanthropic situation. So I consider my job really to get at more the truth and authenticity of what's happening in the field. So I'm always telling people I want to hear what's not going on as well as you'd like, so the challenges you're facing as well as the opportunities, because that's how we can live and learn and become better funders.
Thank you, Susan. I asked Susan to ask about what a program officer is, what they do, because there's certain words that we use in our sector all the time, and we take for granted that everyone may not know what that actually means. I was talking to a friend and told him that I was going to a workshop, and he said, "Oh, what's a workshop?" And I was like, and eventually I said it was like a seminar, and he was like, "Oh, yeah, I totally get it." So in forming partnerships, it seems like, just breaking down even some of the language that we use is really key. Speaking of partnerships, you all have been deeply engaged in them at various points. I wonder if you might be able to talk about a partnership that you've been particularly proud of, one that's gone very well, talking about the people involved, the opportunity outcomes. Helen, why don't we start with you?
Sure.
Partnership.
Sure. When I arrived at Settlement, about a year after I got there, I wanted an opportunity to get to know my colleagues better, and I had already had some really terrific conversations with people who are at the conference today representing Philly about how we can really work together. And that's where PMA started, the Philadelphia Music Alliance for Youth. It is a collective of organizations who really believe in the power of working together. We are not a separate 501c3 by design. We just want to get together and roll up our sleeves and get things done on behalf of the children of Philadelphia. So back in 2012, we started doing projects together. We did some joint festivals. We then did a white paper where we talked about what was most important in the city. And out of that developed two major initiatives. One is the PMA Artists Initiative, funded by the Mellon Foundation. And I have the great privilege of having Susan as our foundation officer. And we shared a lot of information yesterday about that, and that's in support of students from underrepresented communities who wish to become professional classical musicians. And there are 10 organizations that are part of that. And then there's what we call PMA writ large, which is 20 organizations, all genres of music. And a key partner in that work is the School District of Philadelphia. And we're enormously proud to partner with the school district, with all of our PMA partners. And we did something that is the first time in Philadelphia, and I don't think is commonly done around the country, is that we decided that we should pool our resources together around professional development to serve our teachers, to really make sure that they felt that we were behind them and supporting their work. And we did focus groups, and we did surveys, and we planned this for a year and a half to really understand what the teachers wanted and needed from us. And about 2 weeks ago, we launched our very first Shared Professional Development Day. There were 252 music educators who showed up. There was a keynote speaker, Nicole Robinson, who talked with us about the importance of cultural competency and working with all of our students and families. And then we had 10 sessions back to back, led by music teachers for music teachers. So we're very proud that we got that launched.
Great, congratulations. Helen, if you think to the early days of the partnership, why was developing a white paper an important step? What did that do?
Well, a key part of the white paper is we actually went as a group around the country and visited 4 cities that were doing really amazing work in collective impact initiatives. We went to Boston, we went to Chicago, we went to Nashville, and we went to Dallas. And we spent time just learning, just trying to understand what are the key aspects that will make this type of collective work. Then it gave us an opportunity to come back and create a vision for what PMA could become.
Great. Solid. Thanks. Ahmad, partnership success.
Yeah. So in my role, and as with many education and community engagement directors at orchestras, we are heavily reliant on community partnerships. We're asked to do things, engage the community in new and different ways that require skills and expertise that I, as a former musician and arts administrator, may not carry with myself. I don't know, I'm not a music therapist. I don't work in the area of neighborhood redevelopment to know all kinds of those things, but we're asked to be a contributor towards solving problems that exist in those areas of our community. So partner a lot, but what I wanted to focus on today is a relevant partnership specific to this conference, which is our CSO CCM Diversity Fellowship, which is a pre-professional training program for musicians from underrepresented backgrounds in classical music. And we're in our third year of the program now. It pairs a Master of Music or Artist Diploma degree at the University of Cincinnati College Conservatory of Music, with opportunities to perform fairly regularly with the Cincinnati Symphony Orchestra and Cincinnati Pops, mentorship from members of our orchestra, opportunities for private lessons, audition preparation workshops, mock auditions, travel support to allow fellows to fly across the country to take auditions. And, the work is hard. It's a ambitious goal that we're trying to meet in assisting fellows to achieve their goal of orchestra placement. There's really one way to get it, and it's through winning the audition. And only one person can do that, and we understand that. But we also understand that it takes a strong network of support. And at the center of that is a strong relationship, a healthy partnership between the CSO and CCM, but also a very healthy and transparent relationship with our funder, the Mellon Foundation. Especially at the beginning, I remember lots of back and forth of us saying, okay, it's not quite working this way, what can we do different to become more effective? But around that, I find myself constantly in a place where I'm looking for additional resources and new partners to be a part of this program to help enrich the experience for the fellows. So we've got Sphinx as a great example. Orchestral Partners audition that happened on Wednesday of this week. We encourage all the fellows to participate in that. We have regular communication with Sphinx staff to make sure we're taking full advantage of the resources that Sphinx offers. The National Alliance for Audition Support, when we learned about that, sent our check-in the next day, joined, and then the next day after that, I'm on the phone with Jania asking how can we allow our fellows to take advantage of this incredible opportunity, and what do you need me to do to make sure that is possible. There are more. It goes on and on. Our local El Sistema program we work with. We place fellows as resident artists who help work with those children that they serve in the Price Hill neighborhood of Cincinnati. We have to be vigorous supporters of the fellows in order for them to help them achieve their goals. And we understand that there's so much out there beyond just the confines of Cincinnati to help them get there. That's how we'll get there.
Yes, absolutely. And, Ahmad, you referenced the beginning days of this partnership in your remarks just now, and I want to take you back there and just ask you to talk about what was characterizing the formation of this partnership. If you think about how it got started, the kind of the germ of an idea that, or we'll say seed, that sounds a little bit more positive, seed that was really blossomed into something. What does that beginning look like, and how did this come together?
Sure. Well, I wasn't there at the exact origin point of it, but I came in pretty early along in the process. And what really was a shared desire to increase the representation, musicians of color at both CCM and in professional orchestras. And the dean at that time, Peter Langren at CCM, actually approached us with the idea, and we figured out a way to make it happen. It wasn't clean, it wasn't easy. There were lots of conversations with our musicians to find a way to make this work, to fit up to 10 additional players in the orchestra for a given concert. But we got there, and I think it's been a success up till this point. We've seen One of our alumnus is playing with the National Symphony this year in DC. We've had fellows, one is a runner-up at a major national audition, several make finals for some national auditions, several win positions in regional orchestras in our area, and I think there's lots of promise if we make sure we're connecting with all of those various resources who are doing this same type of work. We could actually move the needle.
And it also sounds a little bit like one of the things that was key and core to the beginning was just this idea that you had a shared goal and a shared interest, and that the kind of tangible, concrete idea then followed from that. Mm-hmm. So thanks for sharing. Susan, you've seen a partnership or two.
Or three, yes. Before I talk about partnerships, I really just want to express my gratitude to Aaron and Afa and the Sphinx organization. They have been such a generator of big ideas, but not just, oh, what if we did this, but how do we figure out how to do it, and let's do it now. So we at Mellon, are in the wonderful position of being able to help activate those ideas, but much of the work we're doing now, and two examples are here on stage, but there's also the Son of PMAs that are now running in Chicago and Boston, others around the room, Project Accelerando at Nashville Symphony, and many others that I think were born here. And it's been very gratifying to my colleague Alexis Ortiz, who's here with me, to see what we thought of as high-risk, high-benefit ideas taking root already. One of my former colleagues liked to say collaboration is a muscle, and I love that image because it begins with people. And you can flex your muscles, you can let them atrophy, you can strain them from overwork, but I think it's a wonderful image to think about in terms of collaboration. Probably the flexing that I like to monitor most carefully is that allows trust building to take place. Because collaborations are about people and about relationships, building those relationships and let them flower and flourish. From my seat at the foundation, I have collaborations with grantees, obviously, and those grantees tend to be organizations. So how do we then get in the artists who are the beneficiaries of our grantee relationships? And that's been fundamental to the work we have tried to promulgate. I have funder collaborations, and I will call my colleagues and say, what do you think about this? If I'm going into a city that I'm less familiar with, who are the local funders? Is my proposed intervention going to get in the way of other activities? Can it supplement? Then it's also opportunities to be here, like places like this, and listen so that we can learn and not think that we begin to have any of the answers ourselves. So I was asked to speak about the National Alliance for Audition Support, NAS, which you've heard a lot about here, but I just want to give a bit of the origin stories. That idea was launched at a convening that Mellon and the League of American Orchestras collaborated on to bring together people who were trying to get at this nasty statistic that Aaron has talked about many times of the 4% representation of Black and Latino members in American orchestras that had not moved in a generation, in spite of efforts like Sphinx and like Project STEP in Boston and others. And the idea of NAS was really thought to be low-hanging fruit. Well, what if we just could provide some money for auditions? Oh, easy, we can take care of this, and we can put money aside in our budget quickly. But what did that actually mean? And who should actually implement it? And should this be a project of the League, which is a service organization with great links to orchestras, but not necessarily a lot of trust from musicians, seen as more of a tool of management? Should it be the New World Symphony, which has great training programs at a certain level? Should it be Sphinx as the connector? And we decided it should be all three. But we also decided that artists had to be in the room at every moment. So you had lots of partners, including Mellon, none of whom had worked together before, and it took us 2 years. There were moments, and there were interventions, and there was, I'm in, I'm out, I'm in and out, and I'm just so thrilled to see how well that partnership has come together. It's an immense source of pride for us at Mellon to have that working, and it would not be what it is had we not had the musician participation, because it is in the end about musicians.
Susan, when you were speaking in particular about Aaron and Afa and talked about this idea of risk-taking, I wonder if you might just comment a little bit more about what it's meant for you in your work to take risks, or what it's mean for you to see organizations take risks, and how that works out sometimes and how it doesn't, and what encourages you to keep doing it.
Look, in the sciences, people take risk all the time. We call it experimenting. You have a hypothesis, you spend time working in the lab, either you course correct, you move back and forth. Let's face it, the arts have very little risk capital to do that. And so we call ourselves a learning foundation because we are in the fortunate position of being able to say, we can give you a grant for multiple years, we can give those grants in multiple cycles, and we take a long view. And as Earl Lewis said at the keynote a couple of nights ago, if we had stopped along the way, we could declare moderate success on any one of a number of initiatives, but taking that long view allows what is, particularly in this instance of diversity in orchestras, a generational shift to take place. So our trustees are very rigorous in what they ask of us and what they, have we thought through a proof of concept, a theory of change, what would success look like, and those are always moving targets. So we check in with our grantees annually to see what's going on, budgets get adjusted along the way, work gets changed in a renewal cycle, because we want to come up with the best possible outcomes for the people who are in the trenches doing the work. And we are sitting in our offices just dispensing the fairy dust.
So speaking about these arcs of the work, I wonder how all of you are thinking about these partnerships that you're in and what they might look 5 to 10 years from now. And anything that you might be doing now that's moving in that direction, or that you might be setting up in order to kind of realize that long-term vision. What does it take? What are you thinking? What does that look like?
Sure,
Helen or Ahmad?
I'll jump in there, yeah. I think it's about connecting. I think it's about, there are other organizations that have similar goals and programs to ours, and making sure that we're working together to make the most of the resources that are available to us. I also think that there really is there's a lot on the line with what we're doing. I mean, if something were to happen where the rug is pulled out from under, or heaven forbid, legislation passes, or there's a Supreme Court ruling that makes it more difficult to do the work we do, then what? So it's about really making sure we've got a strong foundation, which is going to require everyone who's doing this type of work to be in it together, communicating, and visioning, collectively as opposed to individual organizations. And that's where our sites are now. I was, as part of a league program I'm doing, I had the opportunity to kind of observe a meeting of Group 1, which are kind of, Group 1 orchestras are of a certain budget, maybe 20 million or higher, but all of their executive directors sitting around the table, and someone raised the question about, with this group, what role do we need to be playing as orchestras in, advancing this issue and making a difference? And those are the types of conversations that need to be happening more and more frequently, with actual, something behind it, in order for us to get where we need to be.
Great.
I would also add that it's about creating a bold vision and setting out that bold vision for everyone around you. I think it's about acknowledging that as you set your bold vision and where you imagine being 10 years from now, that you also acknowledge what you're learning every step of the way. So an example is with the PMA Artists Initiative, our initiative supporting students from underrepresented communities who wish to become professional classical musicians. At every leadership meeting, we say, what are we learning about one another? What did we learn just in the past 2 months? And what are we learning that's sustainable, that we know will go on and on for years after years after years. We also talk about with the school district and partnering with an entity that can be really challenging and wonderful all at the same time, a school district of a major urban center that has gone through huge financial woes like the Philadelphia School District. We create a vision, we sit down and we say, what would it look like if all of these out-of-school time partners and the school district were to come together to say, we want Philadelphia to be a destination. We want music teachers graduating from school across the country to say, I want to come work in Philadelphia. I want to work in Philadelphia because I know that if when I arrive, there's going to be all of these amazing shared learning opportunities. And that is incredibly exciting to us. We want Philadelphia to be a destination. Obviously, we would love for these great ideas to spread throughout the country, but it's this idea of making sure that our urban music educators feel fully supported and talking openly and honestly about those challenges, and also sharing that really bold vision of what it can be.
And also having somebody like Helen who so passionately talks about the work also. Ahmad and Helen, you mentioned this idea of collective groups of people coming together, developing a bold vision. I guess I wonder how you think about working across cultures, across organizational cultures, across discipline cultures, or across, in the case of youth development, the ways that people approach, their philosophies around how they empower youth. What does it mean to develop a really healthy partnership working across those silos?
I'll speak to some of our community partnerships locally in Cincinnati. When I first started in Cincinnati in 2015, one of the first things we did was a strategic planning process for our education and community engagement programs. And the feedback, I had a room of community leaders, neighborhood redevelopment foundation presidents and whatnot, come together, and the overwhelming sentiment was that orchestras in particular, and I think arts organizations in general as well, are not as authentic as they can be with their community engagement work, meaning there's a self-serving motivation behind it. It's kind of surface. There's no longevity to it. The goals between us and our community partners aren't in sync, and we identified that that's something we're going to have to be better at. And it starts with listening. I think it starts with reaching and understanding of shared goals. They don't have to be the same, but they have to be mutually understood, I think. And then just doing what we say we'll do, and to show up again and again and again. Because we have a track record as orchestras for not doing that very well, particularly with community engagement work.
Any other thoughts about working across cultures? I would encourage anyone in the room to, again, engage these mics. Slido questions have been great and helpful. Thanks so much. And asking questions in certainly social media. One of the ideas, or one of the things that powers partnerships is certainly funding. And so, Susan, I guess I wonder, one, beyond funding though, how you see people getting things done in partnerships, how people might be able to leverage your organization beyond cash that might come in order to get things done.
What I see, one of my most important roles is also being a connector. And I think Juilliard is a rarity in that it's an independent school training in multiple disciplines. But so often people working in a single discipline simply don't know the great leaders elsewhere. So Wayne Brown, who may be here, who's the head of Michigan Opera Theater, and I met earlier this week. And Michigan Opera Theater is using its theater to present dance. So the opportunity for me to give him some ideas about dance leaders I know, great dance presenting programs, great dance companies that are being presented, doesn't cost either of us any money, but will help Michigan Opera Theater do its work more effectively. So I have had so often just scratched my head thinking, how is it possible that leader A doesn't know leader B? Because you are both fantastic and you are leaders in your respective fields, but they don't come together. So Mellon will convene people periodically to exchange ideas. That's how the Alliance started, was a convening of, we wanted to get, I think Paul Hogle earlier this morning was casting blame as the problem of diversity, responsibility of orchestras or as the conservatories. It's multiple responsibilities, but if we are going to change that statistic, we need to make sure that we have trained so many young people that the issue of talent and diversity, or excellence and diversity, is just completely off the table, that we are providing access to talented students. So for Mellon, this meant moving into the pre-college area for the first time in our 50-year history. So this is the risk, this is the risk we are taking of saying we may think of ourselves as college and professional, but if we want to make those college and professional schools better, we need to provide some talent. So does that answer the question?
No, absolutely. Yeah. And then Helen, I wonder, beyond foundation funding, how you're thinking about expanding resources for PMA, but also certainly for Settlement Music School.
Sure. Well, I would say that I think one of the most powerful results of this work, just initially in the first year and a half, are the connections that we've made around the country. And so the foundation and Susan is helping facilitate these conversations. So just 2 nights ago, we had a dinner with our wonderful colleagues from Boston and Chicago, and having really authentic conversations about what this could look like as they launch. And Susan put out the question to us, what was most challenging? What do you know now that you didn't know when you started? And I know that she's so genuine in really wanting the true answers and sharing those answers that could possibly help another city really get started. So for me, it's about creating a national dialogue, and I think that's what's so powerful about these initiatives, is that we're looking at Philadelphia to change the way the city operates, and then we want to see how this can change the national landscape.
Great, thanks so much. We'll take a question to my left. Thank you so much.
Hi, Helen. My question's kind of what you were just talking about. You mentioned that part of the work you do, you engage more rural communities, and I'm from Rust Belt, Pennsylvania, an hour and a half away from Philly, so it wasn't very practical for me to go to Settlement School coming up, but I did hear about it, and so I was wondering, what exactly, or rather, how do you engage rural communities, and what are sort of the challenges that you face doing that?
Sure. I mean, I honestly have to say we haven't quite done it yet. What I do care about a lot, I also serve on the board. I'm a trustee of the National Guild for Community Arts Education, and they think also very deeply about rural communities and making sure that we make those connections. So through service on their board, I feel like it is absolutely top of mind for me. For PMA and for the work that we're doing in Philadelphia, what I would say is I would really welcome you to come and learn about the work that we're doing, and I truly believe that this work is replicable no matter where you are in the country. This idea of just calling together leaders of other arts organizations, rolling up your sleeves and tackling problems together can be done anywhere.
Thank you.
Great, thanks. We'll stick with this mic. Next.
Hi, thank you so much for this panel. My name is Ashley Gordon. I'm Artistic Director of Castle of Our Skins, and I'm also an educator at the Boston Youth Symphony Orchestra, which is one of the recipients from this whole initiative, which is beautiful for me to hear in the past few panels, and certainly this panel as well. As an educator, and this is maybe for the Mellon Foundation as well as for Helen, but as an educator at the Boston Youth Symphony Orchestra, I'm very curious to know what kind of professional development opportunities and resources you've given to your educators in Philadelphia, and certainly thinking about the partnerships and various disciplines that may be within your partnership. What kind of resources to the educators have you provided?
So our big kickoff was this shared professional development day. And of the 252 educators, 150 were from the school district and 100 were from out of school time. What we heard as a result of the survey that they wanted most, the number one thing they wanted to learn about was building intrinsic motivation in students. And so we made sure as we put forth ideas of people to submit session proposals that they address that. They also want to know about things like classroom management, and they want to understand about working with a diverse student population. And so I think the best way we can do this is through an authentic response to what the teachers want, and then to provide opportunities for them just to get together. But it's absolutely critical that these sessions be led by the teachers themselves, because that's where the greatest connections happen.
We've done a number of formal professional development grants over the years, notably to National Arts Strategies, which does wonderful work, to the programs at the League and Theater Communications Group. But one thing I neglected to mention in talking about the origin stories for NAS was that the artists in the room were telling us that there had to be unconscious bias training, that we had to change the culture of orchestras. And given the amount of money we had available and the kinds of services we wanted to provide, I said, I need to disaggregate that, because I want buy-in from orchestras, and if we are going to alienate orchestras that don't think they need unconscious bias training, though I think everybody in the world needs it, that I don't want to set this off in the wrong place. But we will address this problem. And a couple of cycles ago, we made a grant to the League of American Orchestras for its Catalyst Fund, which is just launching, which is offering orchestras that want it to opt in to take resources, to bring in a facilitator, to do training sessions. So I think that lifelong professional development for all of us is very, very important. It's harder in the arts. You don't get sabbaticals the way your colleagues in academic institutions will be. So we cobble it together as we can. Thank you.
Just one addition to that question is, we started a CSO educator network a few years ago, primarily as a way for us to connect with educators in our area. And through this, we started doing an annual teacher appreciation event, basically. Provide them comp tickets to a concert, have a reception, give out some prizes, recognize them for their work, and bring our music director there or our president to make sure that we're well represented as an orchestra. And what we heard from this was just an unexpected outpouring of gratitude from the teachers, saying, no one ever does this for us. And I think there's a sense of underappreciation that we all can help subdue a little bit, or just make them feel the morale, improve a little bit. And kind of as an outcome from what we learned, we're kind of toying with the idea of just a self-care workshop for teachers. How do you keep yourself energized and refreshed and ready to make an impact on kids' lives? So that's one thing that we learned.
I need a self-care workshop for myself also, by the way. And we'll go with another question from this mic. Thank you so much.
Hi, my name is Francisco, and my question is, how do you approach starting a collaboration or partnership when you're not part of a well-known, established institution? In other words, how can you make the right idea get to the right ears?
That's a very good question, and I have problems with that for different reasons, because we're kind of like the 800-pound gorilla in the room, and some people don't want to partner with us for that reason. But one way I think about it is being curious, getting out there, learning, seeing what's happening at these events, make yourself known. And if you don't have time to do that, then maybe find someone who does have time, who can be an advocate for your organization. One of our best volunteers, co-chair of our Multicultural Awareness Council, is just one of those artistic, those arts, culture, tourist type people, is that everything that is happening in Cincinnati. And because of that, we learn a lot. We learn about a lot of opportunities, not just in Cincinnati. She's also a subscriber to Chicago Sinfonietta. So, every month I'm hearing what Chicago Sinfonietta is doing and how we could learn from their work. So, just it's about curiosity and being out there and asking questions and making yourself known and sharing with others about the work that you do.
I would also add persevere and show that you're really willing to work, to put the work in. Although Settlement Music School is a really large institution, there was really no relationship between the school district and Settlement when I first arrived, and I was just absolutely determined to bridge that gap. So there's nothing like showing up a few years later, of course, but there's nothing like showing up, and I'm like carrying the food and the waters and, you know, making sure that all these music teachers have this really lovely breakfast and this lovely lunch. And I know that sounds really simple, but actually it's about the message that we're sending. It's the message that we're sending that we care deeply. And yes, Settlement is a large institution, but I had 10 of my staff members there to work and do everything possible that day to make that happen. And I think that sent the right message. And the school district really has been an incredible partner. Frank Makos runs this, the arts for the school district. And I think because he has seen us work so hard, he has been willing to be so gracious in his time and his efforts with us. So just start doing the work is what I would recommend.
And Susan, in your kind of anecdote about Wayne Brown, is there something in having someone else help open doors for you or kind of give you insights about kind of a channel to navigate that might help one enter into partnerships?
Certainly, you know, collaboration, human muscle, human context are helpful. We try not to let that kind of access be the only point of entry at Mellon. We have ourselves tried to become more transparent in recent years. Our website has an inquiry section on it. I hesitate to say that because I'm always behind in reading them. But we will occasionally find an idea that originates off the Transom that way. More often than not, it does come from people showing up, listening, asking questions, making themselves known, volunteering, as Helen says, and being in places like this. I've had a number of conversations this weekend with people who are not grantees. Some of them never will be some grantees. Some of them may be down the line. We have a large grant-making budget, but when you think about 50 states and 800 orchestras and hundreds of opera companies, it doesn't go very far if you're trying to make the kind of systemic change that we believe in Mellon. So we are taking a few intractable problems and trying to move the needle, lift all boats, which means that there are fewer single organizations we can grant at any one moment. So collaboration also helps us leverage our monies most effectively.
Great. In Slido, there is a question that is about scaling these programs. I smile because Ahmad and I just talked about scaling at lunch. And I guess I wonder how you think about scaling any of your work in such a way that feels really great, but doesn't actually risk getting too big and nuts and crumbling, you know? Like, how do you serve even more young people, serve even more without it just like caving in on itself?
I'll start with this. I mean, I think the problem in American orchestras is going to start with early access training, and that there are access issues that places like Settlement can begin to address so that students can get into Juilliard and Curtis and CIM and then be ready as fellows to go to CIM. But if we tried to do all of that at once as a single funder, we would fail miserably. So we have been laser focused in saying we are addressing young students at who have identified as pre-professional, who want that career. So philosophically, we understand the large access programs are our feeders and are the most important places that money can go, but we can't do that all.
And I would
so
say
it's a focus.
With the PMA Artists Initiative, we are very much laser focused. And so we're responding to that, and all our energies are poured into this goal. So yes, we respond as well, and I think by staying very focused in what you're doing and not trying to do everything at once, that you'll have much better outcomes.
Great. So we'll go to the mic on my right and then the mic on my left. Thank you.
Hi, I have a question about collaboration. So I run an organization in my school that focuses on bringing music of varying genres to underserved communities throughout New York City. And a large part of the work that my co-chairman and I do is focused on meeting with principals. And elementary school principals have a lot to do outside of music and the arts. And I mean, a huge area of focus for us is, I mean, just talking about the lack of emphasis on arts at a lot of elementary schools throughout the city. So our goal is sort of to remedy that. But how do you effectively collaborate with someone that, an administrator that has a lot on their plate outside of your agenda? So you may have the same shared interest, but they have a lot more to focus on than you do.
Yeah, I think it's being laser focused in your time with that busy person and you thinking through before you're in the room of what you think that is going to be of most use to that person. And there's a great phrase by Wayne Gretzky, I don't go where the puck is, I go where I want the puck to become. So I think if you are thinking in your conversations with that principal of what is going to make his or her school work better and how your organization can help effectuate that change on their behalf, you are engaging rather than reaching out.
And I guess also the approach of these introductions and you all being able to say what you do very succinctly, say what you offer very succinctly, maybe that might give some time for people who have busy schedules, everybody's busy, but to be able to make decisions and act on whatever you're offering or the partnership that you're opening up.
Yeah. One of my earliest meetings, I was in publishing at the time and was meeting with one of the top 5 orchestras, and I was told I would have 10 minutes. So I prepared remarks to be done in 5 minutes, and we talked for an hour. So that's a successful meeting, but I spent a lot of time thinking about what is the most important thing I can say to this person.
Thank you. Mike on my left.
Wondering, relating to collaboration, if you could speak to large versus small organizations trying to collaborate together, and that there are certainly a number of smaller organizations out there. Sphinx deeply experienced this in the early days where there were orchestras or any other large organizations that really weren't considering partnering. Or if you get into a partnership and there's such a differential of size that oftentimes the smaller organization can feel taken advantage of or lesser, but not really have any opportunity to express their voice about that. Just wondering if you could speak about the experiences you've had of large versus small in collaborations.
Yeah, it's a balancing act. I think it's been our experience that some of the smallest organizations are the most nimble. They are the most mission-focused, and they've then become the most distinctive. So helping those organizations get voice so that they can work with the larger institutions takes time, and it takes, again, building trust.
For us, for the PMA Artists Initiative, the school district is a partner. The Philadelphia Orchestra is a partner. We also have organizations that have budget sizes of just a few $100,000. So in those situations, settlement brings resources to the smaller organizations that they may not have. So we have an outstanding CFO, and can she get on the phone with their business manager? Maybe the business manager is the executive director and help them through. But you need to really understand what place they're starting at and make sure that if you have those resources, you provide them.
Yeah, so we are the largest arts organization in our city, and yeah, I want to think about this more, but I guess I'll just talk off the top of my head a little bit. But part of it is, we made a commitment to be there for the needs and desires that were expressed to us through our small community partners, and just said we're going to commit to meeting those. I'm sure there are many opportunities for the experience that you had, Aaron, to arise in Cincinnati as well with our orchestra. But it's about communication, it's about expectations, setting those things out, being clear and not shy away from them. And not shy away from conflict as well, because that's how we move things forward. Conflict is good. That would be my surface answer to that question, I suppose.
Great, thanks. And we'll take one more question in just a few minutes. And by a few minutes, I really mean a few seconds. Thank you so much.
Hi. You mentioned earlier about the pre-college focus, and my comment is that I think at this stage is really crucial that we look 5 years down the road and really focus on that. The youth orchestra programs, making sure that we have accessibility to private lessons, et cetera. I know we have those initiatives, but I think 50 states, small programs, we really need the funding organizations to help us to develop funding or receive funding so that we can better prepare, because we have students that work hard, but they don't start taking lessons until late. And so we need to get those lessons earlier. They have a lot of talent, but we can only spend so much money with lessons, and we need more help with that. And I think somehow that could be more of a focus. If you could help us with that.
Thank you.
Yes,
Yeah,
thank you
couldn't
so
agree
much.
more.
Lots of opportunity to
That's why funders need collaborators too.
why funders need collaborators, and why it really captures the spirit, I think, of this panel, in that the work that is being done at all levels of our kind of ecosystems really benefit from not just a single source of support, but from multiple sources of support. And by having these kinds of partnerships, it certainly helps out success, and helps us get to a place where it's more likely that we'll get to the place that we want to get to, or get to a place that we didn't know that we wanted to get to, but we're happy to be. So thank you all so much for sharing your ideas today. Thank you for doing the work that you are doing in your communities. And certainly thank you all for being here with us today. I certainly hope you have a really great conference. I hope that you will say hello to me or any of us as you see us marching through the halls on our way to some other fantastic session or concert. And please have a great day. Thank you so much.